So we are going to discuss for our first topic called data model in MDG. So this particular data model, just to give a quick recap. So if you take any MDG system, right? So this is our ERP component. Okay, it can be either your ECC version or S4 version. Okay, on top of that one, once we activate MDG related business functions, so we can see MDG related functionalities. So in ERP, you get your actual application specific tables, which will store your master data. So the example for this, we call it as an application specific tables, or we also call this as an active area. Okay. So active area, nothing but basically your Mara, like Marcy, okay, and MVKE. So these are the table names in material master. Okay. Similarly, in customer master, we have KNA1 and KNB1. Okay. So likewise, we have similarly in vendor master, we have LFA1. Okay. So all these are the actual application tables which will store your master data. For material master, you have some say tables. For customer master, vendor master, for business partners, and all the objects, you already have these kind of tables that comes as part of your ERP. Now, when you activate your MDG, so what we discussed in earlier, also you get something called system will generate something called staging tables. So these staging tables will be used to store your data temporarily. And once all the approval process and everything is completed on this particular record, so this data will be moved from your staging tables to your actual application tables, right? So we have here, we are dealing with the two set of tables. One is application specific tables, which already will be part of your ERP layer. And as part of MDG, when you activate your MDG related business functions, so you get you can actually see these kind of staging tables will get generated. So this we call it as a either inactive area or staging area. Okay, so initially the data gets stored over here, and the data we call it as an inactive record, because why we are calling it as inactive record, we cannot use this record for your transactional purpose because this is not yet activated. Okay, so once all the approval review process is completed, this data will be moved to your underlying application tables, and the data that exists in this particular tables, we call it as your active records. And these tables, we call it as an active area. Active area is nothing but your application specific tables only. Okay. So now in this, our MDG, the first topic data model, that we are basically dealing with this particular portion. Okay. How we can create the staging tables and everything, so that we will be dealing with this one. So before getting into the data, data model topic, within the data model, first we have some small concept called reuse mode versus flex mode. So this is again a very important concept over here when it comes to your data model. What is reuse mode and what is flex mode? Okay, so now just take your typical MDG. So we have your active area tables, and this is your MDG layer. We have your staging tables. Okay, so what we discussed just now, so initially when user logged into MDG system and he creates the data gets stored into this particular table. And after that, once the approval process or everything is completed, then once a record get activated, the record will get deleted from your staging table and it will move to your active area table. So you don't find that record in your staging table. That record, because we are saying this record is activated, and that record we are moving it to your active area tables, right? So this kind of mode, we call it as a reuse mode. Okay, so reuse mode means here you see your application specific tables, whatever your Mara, Masi, KNA1, these application specific tables are there. So those tables, okay, of course, this is my MDG system. whether it is a hub scenario or co-deployment scenario. In both the cases, in any MDG system, you will have your underlying applications layer or nothing but your ERP layer. So here the concept is, as and when the record get activated in MDG, so that record will get deleted from your staging table and it will get inserted into your the underlying application specific tables. So this concept we call it as a reuse mode, because in this case the application specific tables that we are reusing to store your active records. Okay, so that's why we call this as a reuse mode. SAP doesn't created any brand new set of tables to store your active data. Your active data always gets stored into your application specific tables. Those are nothing but Mara-Marcy tables, right? So here we are, this table, the table that you see here, we are reusing to store your active records, right? So that's why we call it as a reuse mode. Okay, now coming back to the next concept called flex mode. Okay, in case of flex mode, just look at the same MDG system. You have your staging tables and your application specific tables are here. This is your ERP layer. Okay, now here, initially when user log into MDG system and he created a material, then this data gets stored into this particular staging table. So that record, we call it as an inactive record. Okay. Now, what happens is after approval process completed, unlike your reuse mode, your inactive record will turn into active record and the active record gets stored into your staging table only. It doesn't move it to your underlying application specific tables. In fact, the same inactive record will become active record and the active record gets stored into your staging table only. It gets stored into the same staging table. Okay, so this kind of concept we call it as a flex mode. Why we are calling it as a flex? Because your staging tables are flexible enough to store initially your inactive record, and after activation, it will store your active record, the same table. So your inactive, there won't be any two versions of records, inactive and active. It will be one version. Once that data gets activated, the same record will turn into active. So how do we say it's a turned into active? For every record, there is a field I will show you when we get into the system. So there is a field called inactive field. If that value is 1, it indicates it's active record. If the value is 0, it indicates it's inactive record. So that 0 will turn into 1. Okay, so this kind of concept we call it as a flex mode. So SAP provided both the techniques. Okay, now it's up to us when, at least when it comes to the standard objects, right? So like your material master, business partners, customer master, and vendor master, even article master, and your EAM objects, that is Utopia solution, right? So all these objects are designed in such a way that it will always use the reuse mode. So it uses reuse mode. That means for all these objects, when you create a master data, you are at the time of activation process, that means your inactive record will turn into active. Okay, and that active record will be moved to your underlying ERP table. So your staging table will get cleared with, it will flushes out to your the inactive records. Okay, once the record get activated, there is no record that exists in your staging table. You will find the active record in your active application table. So this is basically the way how you are designing your data model, because your data model you can design it as a reuse mode data model or flex mode data model. So these are the standard out-of-box objects, and the data models are already available for these objects, and these data models are designed using this reuse mode technique. Only finance object, OG, only finance objects are designed using flex mode. Flex mode, only finance objects. Okay, this is the situation about for your standard objects. When it comes to the custom object in the sense, maybe employee master or your plant master or anything, right? So those objects, when you create a custom object as well, then it's up to you whether you wanted to go with reuse mode approach or flex mode approach. That is for in our control. So we will take a call. I mean, that we will discuss. So, but when it comes to the standard objects, so all these standard objects like Material Master BP, Article Master EM are designed using reuse mode approach. Only finance objects are used designed using flex approach. Okay, so now reuse mode, it's very clear for all these objects. As and when you activate the record or once the approval is completed, then the record will be moved to your application specific tables, because it uses the reuse mode technique, and the nature, I mean, the behavior is as it follows. Like, I mean, it will move to the active area. But why SAP created finance objects using flex mode? Why can't they use it as a reuse mode? Okay, so the reason is compared to finance object versus all other objects, right? So you see all other objects versus finance. What is the major difference? In case of finance objects, all these finance objects like your cost center, profit center, GL account, so all these finance objects are time dependency. It has time dependent object. All these are time dependent objects. When I say time dependent object, let's say you are creating a cost center, you need to associate some validity. What is the validity of this particular cost center? When you create a profit center also, there is a validity we will be associating. But for material master and other objects, we don't associate any of this kind of validity. Okay. Now, how this validity is related or your flex mode helps for these finance objects. Okay. So now what happens is, in case of flex mode, okay, for all the finance objects, let's say I'm setting up a new plant or new company code, which starts from 1st January 24. Okay. It starts from this particular date. Now, I wanted to be when I wanted to start my operations from 1st January to 2024, I need to create all the elements, finance related elements in advance. So that means I need to create a GL account, or probably the cost center, profit center, all the finance related objects I need to create in advance. So these objects will get created. So now what happens is, when you in finance, we have a concept called addition. In detail about the addition, I will take a separate session, but I'll give you a very high level introduction about this addition. So there is something called addition and this addition will be exclusively use this concept only in finance objects. What is the concept of this particular addition? This addition, you create one addition in the system, and what information this addition carries is basically the validity period. Okay, so I create one addition, let's say addition 1, and I'll assign the validity period as 1st January 2024 till 31st December 2024. Okay, now I create a GL account. When I'm creating a GL account, I need to assign a validity. So the validity I will be assigning via, that means basically what I will do is, when I'm creating a GL account, I will assign this addition. It's a mandatory when you're creating any finance object, you need to select addition. Okay, so when you select, you need to choose one of the active additions. So I will choose this addition. So when I select this addition while creating this GL account, right? So what happens is, system will, whatever the validity period is there, that validity period will be associated automatically. Your GL account will get that same validity. Similarly, I create a profit center and I create a cost center. For all these things, I will assign this is the addition. So all these objects which I'm creating for my new company code, so I create this addition, and for all these objects, when I'm creating these objects, I'll assign this addition. So with this one, what happens is, first, the validity period will be assigned to, same validity period will be assigned to all your finance objects. That is one thing. These objects are created and these objects are already stored in my staging table only, and these objects are already active. These are already activated, but still these objects will be there in my staging table only. And with the validity period, this is a validity period. Now what happens is, on 1st or on 31st December 23, I will schedule that this edition should be released. So when this particular time occurs, then automatically this edition can be released.
Hey, you know, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training. That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands-on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features? Bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in-house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
So when I release this edition, that time what happens is these objects will be the objects that are associated with the edition will be replicated to your target system from MDG to the target system. So these objects, basically this edition controls two things. One is your validity period, other one is when to replicate the data to the other systems. So if you create a material, customer, vendor, automatically as and when the requests get approved or activated, automatically it will replicate the data to the target systems. Whereas in case of finance objects, the replication won't happen automatically. The active records will be there in your staging table only. And when you assign, you can control the replication of these objects. The replication of all these objects you can control via addition. I just need to release this addition either manually or I can schedule it when to release. So when I schedule that one, automatically all the objects which are already approved and active in my staging table, so those records will be replicated automatically to the target system. So basically, to control these things, you need to store your active records also in the staging table only for some more time. So that's the reason SAP come up with this concept called flex mode concept. So I'll take a pause, and if anyone have any questions, we can discuss.
Can I ask you? So when the release happens and then the edition becomes effective, the finance objects with the validity goes into other systems. Will they also go into the target? The regular tables that are there in the ERP side.
Good question, actually. So if you look at the architecture, okay, it's a really good question. Now, if you look at this one, typical your MDG architecture. So you have target system 1, target system 2. So this is your MDG system where you have your MDG layer and your ERP layer here. And this is your application specific tables. And this is your staging tables. So what we are saying here is, so I created a cost center. And once the edition AED1 got released, so this data, the active data that is already under this particular edition will be replicated to these systems, which is fine. So the finance objects are available in my target systems, transactional systems. Now, what about these particular tables? In earlier reuse mode, this replication, so if you look at just a minute. So in reuse mode, this replication automatically happens. That is the nature of your reuse mode behavior, right? As and when the record get activated, automatically the record will get moved. But in case of flex mode, it doesn't happen automatically. You need to configure a separate additional replication from here to here. So that how you are replicating the data. So this is your replication 1. This is your replication 2. This will become your replication 3. That means a self-replication is also need to be configured.
Okay. So just for the finance objects.
Yeah, only for finance objects.
Okay.
My question is, what if the target systems are different? Like one is, let's say, Oracle EBS and another one is a different ERP.
Mm-hmm.
So the data model, that will have a different data model structure, right?
Yeah. So that we will discuss during our, because this question comes under your data replication topic, because what we are saying as part of the data replication, it supports your SAP as well as non-SAP system as well, where your data model may or may not match, right? So in that case, how do we handle that scenarios, that we will discuss in topic called data replication framework. Here our idea is, what is the concept of flex mode, right? So that if you are clear with this one, we will discuss all these other questions during our data replication framework.
Got it. Flex model is clear, Akshay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Just one final question there.
Sure.
The flex, are you saying if I have a finance master, I can never use the reuse mode? I can only use a...
Yeah. So these objects are already, if you look at these objects, right? So these objects are the standard objects. So these are designed using this approach. So we cannot change the behavior. It has to work like this. But when it comes to custom objects like employee master or plant master or anything, it is up to us whether we wanted to go with reuse option or flex option.
Your custom objects is clear, but the finance objects,
we cannot change the behavior.
Okay, so we have to use both the modes, reuse mode as well as flex mode, but the reuse mode for the standard objects and finance objects, we must use flex mode.
Yeah. So the data model design itself is like that. So when we get into the data model topic, then you will have better understanding.
Got it. No problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Actually, so you have explained about the validity period, right? So it's only replicate the data when the validity ends.
No.
Is that correct?
No, not that one. So your addition, right? So basically your addition basically deals with two things. One is, as I said, validity. So validity means, so basically you create a cost center, profit center, right? So you need to assign the validity. It should be valid.
Let's say profit center.
Yeah, profit center. So the validity period I say for this profit center is 1st January 24 till 31st December 24, right? So this is the validity. That means the cost center, I can use it during this period. So that means this object has to be created and replicated to your target system on or before this one.
So whatever the modifications we have carried, so that will be come up to the 31st December 24.
Yes, for that object.
Okay, so if we can modify on 1st of January 2025, so that will be on a new profit center or cost center.
No, it will be the same with a different validity. So that actually I will explain in detail during edition how it works basically. We have a separate topic, so there I'll explain that one. But so during this period, I will use edition 1, and maybe for the other period, I can create one more edition and I can use. So your cost center remains same, but during if you are creating any documents during this period, whatever the changes are there on this particular during this period, so those changes will be applied. But if you are creating any document on 1st January 25, so during that time, if any other new changes are there, it will hold. Basically, it will keep a copy of all your changes along with your validity period.
Like an annual copy. So for every year, we will have an annual copy like that.
So this is an example, but sometimes in many organizations, usually organizations, they create these objects and they assign the validity per yearly validities. But sometimes people will create for every 6 months or quarterly basis also. But
we can modify the validity also.
We will actually discuss in detail about the edition separately. So but edition at very high level, edition actually controls the validity period. At the same time, when to replicate the object to your target systems, so that it controls. So both the things it controls. Okay. Yeah. So if flex versus reuse mode. So is this clear to everyone?
This release has to be done manually.
No, it can be manual or it can be automated. We can schedule also.
Okay.
Okay. So I will show you that in the system how to release that edition and everything when we are talking about the finance objects. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So if this is clear, let's just have a look at from this particular diagram also you can see. So this is the flex versus reuse mode. So now let's look at this particular reuse mode. So what happens is this is your MDG layer. This is your application layer. So you have a staging table, and once the record gone through all the approval process, validations, derivations, all the MDG governance processes, at the end, we initiate something called activation process. Activation means that is the time where your actual record get created in your application table, right? So that's why that process, we call it as the activation process. And during that time, your inactive record will be moved to, the record will be moved from staging to active area. And this record in staging area will be deleted, right? So that's what your reuse mode concept, if you look at this diagram. Now, when it comes to flex mode, okay, so this is actually this diagram, right? So the same thing, you have your active area here, okay? So this is very fine. Now here, the point is basically this is a one single staging area only. So SAP created the diagram misleading, but you are in your MDG only. In MDG, it's a same staging tables. It's not two separate tables. So SAP later corrected this particular diagram in the recent SAP press books. So they kept only single box here. That means it's a one single staging area. So there is no two separate staging areas. In the same single staging area, what they mean is your inactive record will become active and it stores in the same staging table. Okay.
So we will have either staging table or active table.
No. It's
So
a one
it will
table.
shuffles from 0 to 1.
Yeah, it's a single table only, but the record status will change inactive to active. That's it.
0 to 1 or 1 to
0. 0 to 1 or 1 to 0. Okay, so now you see there is a specific separate explicit this arrow mark is there, which indicates that if at all you need the data to be also present in your application layer, there is an additional replication is required. That is what this particular diagram says.
So when it comes to flex mode, we need to configure two things, right?
Yes.
One is replication mode and activation and reactivation.
No. There's no activation is anyway, it's a common. As soon as once all the approval process is completed, we will initiate the activation process in workflow. That is common for your reuse and flex mode. So activation will be there. Now the question is, after activation, where the active record gets stored. In case of reuse, your active record gets stored here. In case of flex, your active record gets stored into the same MDG layer only.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, one other question.
Yeah.
Can the standard objects still remain in the active area or the MDG side of things only, not moving to the ERP side, but then remain in because we have chosen to flex mode? Is that possible? Or
you are talking about the flex mode, right?
Yeah, on the flex mode, finance objects definitely, they will remain in the MDG side of things.
Yes.
And if you want, you can replicate it. That's fine. But the standard objects, can they stay in the MDG side of things, staging tables itself, or it will automatically come? Only the finance objects will remain in the MDG side of things.
You are talking about the standard object means the MMBP, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we cannot actually control that. As soon as basically the activation process get initiated, the data has to go to your application table. So you cannot keep that copy of the data here. Okay.
So regardless of which mode we are choosing, the standard objects will always remain in the ERP side. Once the activation is complete, it will come and remain in the SAP area rather than in the other side. Only the finance objects will remain in that because we have chosen it is supposed to be a flex mode. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is about flex versus reuse mode. Now after this, we are actually getting into the actual data model concepts. So now going back to your actual data model concepts, right? So now there are two things, like, as we discussed, for MMBP or article master or finance objects, already these are the out of box objects. For all the standard objects, this is out of box content. That means the data models, UI application, everything is already available, right? So for this standard object, what I can show you how the data model is there, and if at all we wanted to enhance with something, some custom attribution and everything, that is one use case for us, right? So one use case is basically how to enhance standard objects or standard data models. These are the ones. The other use case is how we can create from a scratch a new custom data model. That means basically custom object. I wanted to enable MDG functionality for my employee master or plant master, which are the custom object, right? So in this use case, in this second use case, we can touch each and every concept of data model, because we need to create everything from scratch, right? So what we will do is, let's take one use case and we start creating one custom data model. So with this one, what are the entity types, what are the relationships, everything, different concepts at every attribute, the significance of each and every setting that we can touch. So let's first focus on how we can create one custom data model from scratch. And after that, what we can do is, then enhancing the standard data model is very simple and straightforward to us, right? So let's take one use case for the custom data models. Okay, now
which model we will use frequently in a real life domain? I mean, real projects.
In projects, like, you will be working on material masters, business partners, customers.
Not like that. As you said before, there are two things, right?
Flex versus reuse.
No, just scroll up for once. So we are gonna use custom and enhancement models, right? So which one is more frequently used one? Enhancement model or custom model?
No. Both are two separate things. Okay.
Both are used frequently
No.
in job.
Let me
I think
hear.
the question is, do we use standard or custom-based model, right? Not because.
See, it depends. That's what. Let me explain. So, see, when you are working on MDG, you need to, you will be working either or BP or finance, or you will be working on article master or EM, right? So these are the ones, the main objects that you are going to work in MDG. So in any implementation, the most common implementations you see for material master, business partners, and finance objects. Article and EM objects are whoever actually the customers, the retail customers who are in retail space or who are in PM module, so they may or may not implement. But wherever you see MDG, these three objects will be implemented for sure. So when you are working on in any MDG project, that means either you will be working on or BP or finance, right? Apart from this one, sometimes you might get a requirement to handle some of the customer requirements, you might need to create a custom data model. In addition to this, you might create a custom data model. It's not like either custom or this one. These are for sure. 100% you will be working on these objects. And apart from this, maybe out of 10 implementations, in 1 or 2 implementation, you might need to create a custom data model as well. That is a kind of optional thing. Depends on your business requirements. But why I am explaining that custom data model? Because if I explain that custom data model, the same approach SAP followed for creating these data models, it will be easy for you to do an enhancement thing. Clear?
Okay.
Small doubt. Actually, this is already out-of-box solutions for if you purchase MDG function foundation. So, do we require to implement them again, or do we do the enhancement only?
That's what I'm saying. We will be doing on these objects, you will be doing only the enhancements only. What do you mean by enhancement? Basically, maybe in material master, you have 100 attributes. Now, business says that, okay, I wanted to have some 10 more attributes. Those are not part of your standard object. So what you will be doing, in addition to 100, you will be adding 10 more attributes. That means it becomes an enhancement.
So, in the standard
these
data
10
models,
these 10 objects will be already available in ERP, right?
What these are not objects. I'm just saying attributes. These are the attributes. Yeah, these 100 attributes are already available for MM. Now I need to enhance maybe with to handle some of the customer requirements. I need to enhance with 10 more. So you if you are working on in any SAP project, so basically what happens, you might see that, okay, you need to enhance the standard tables, right, with some custom attributes.
Okay.
Same concept here. Okay. So for standard objects, again and again, I'm saying there is no need to create anything from scratch. We will be working only on the enhance. We will enhance that standard. You take a standard ABAP report program or standard UI applications or standard transaction codes. You will enhance it to include some of the customer requirements. The same approach we follow over here. But if you are working on a custom object, that means maybe you wanted to govern employee master. So there is no standard object for employee master. So I need to build it from scratch. The data models, UI applications, workflows, everything I need to create it. Okay. So now we in this entire course, we will be taking two use cases. One is building a custom object. Other one is enhancement. Okay. The reason first I'm going to explain the custom object is because if you know how to create a table from scratch, it will be easy for you to how to add a new attribute to this table. Okay. So that's the reason. Let's take example of custom object. How we can actually create a custom data model for any custom object. Okay. So that's fine. Now let's I hope everyone understands this the SAP tables concept. Okay, so how do we create a tables in SAP? So basically you can go to the transaction code SE11 and let's take for example, this is the table. The table name is Mara table, where you can see the material related data, right? So this is the table name, and you can see all these are the attributes or fields in the table. Some of them are key fields, some of them are non-key fields, and you see the data elements are there. So these data elements are nothing but for every field in a table, you will have a data element. This particular data element in SAP terminology tells you that what is the type of, whether it is a character or it is an integer or it is a string. So it gives you the data type of this one. The data element says the data type of that. What is the length and what is the data type. Okay. So this is the, yeah.
In MDG, we used to call them as entities, right? Data elements are nothing but entities.
Wait. Don't jump into that again, those concept. Okay. So I will explain, and after that, if you have any question, we will discuss.
What sets ZaranTech apart in SAP corporate training? It's our unique blend of expertise and innovation. We offer customized courses tailored to each client's needs, ensuring relevant, targeted learning. Our vast trainer database brings you wisdom from the best in the field. Need resources? Access our extensive training material repository anytime. We are all about measurable results, providing detailed student metrics to track progress. And we don't just teach, we build community. Join our thriving social media network, connecting learners beyond boundaries. With ZaranTech, you are not just training, you are transforming your SAP expertise.
Sorry, Akshay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just trying to show you how a table look like in SAP, which stores the data. So this is the Mara table, which stores your material master, which has certain fields. How many fields it has? 369 fields this table has. Okay. That means 369 attributes, the basic attributes for your material master. And you can also look at the data inside this particular table, how many records are there and everything, right? So now this is your ERP side. Okay. So let's take one example. like I'm taking example of material master. What are the tables that are there in material master? So you can see Mara is one table.
Mercy.
This table has certain attributes, attribute 1, attribute 2, attribute 3. Similarly, you also have a table called Marcy. Okay, so this Marcy also has some attribute 1, attribute 2, attribute 3. Likewise, okay. Now you might also have another table called MBKE, which stores your sales related, material sales related information. So likewise in MM module, you have these multiple tables. Okay, in MDG, we are talking about the data model, right? So the same table here in MDG side, on MDG side, we call this as an entity. Okay, corresponding to Mara table, there will be one entity in MDG. And the attributes that are there in Mara table, right? You see, these are the attributes. So under this entity also, you will have the attributes. Attribute 1, attribute 2, attribute 3. Similarly, corresponding to this one, there will be one more entity. Okay. Under this particular entity, again, you have these attributes. Attribute 1, attribute 2, attribute 3. Similarly, there is one more entity. Attribute 1, 2, 3. Okay. So you can see the representation here on the right hand side. This is your ERP application specific tables, and this is your MDG side. Okay. So in MDG, we don't create the tables, basically the staging tables. We create something called entities in MDG side. Okay. And under each entity, you specify what are the attributes. Just like how the table has the table attributes, entity will have entity attributes. Okay, so these attributes, you can assume that this is corresponding to this one, this is the attribute. Corresponding to this one, this is the attribute, likewise. Okay, so now in MDG side, we don't create the table, you create something called entities. Okay, and all these entities are grouped under one thing called data model. Okay, so there will be one data model at the top level. Under the data model, you will create these entities. Under each entity, you create the attributes. And when you have more than one entity in under one single data model, you need to define a relationship between these entities. And finally, what we do is we activate this data model. Finally, you activate this data model. Then that is the time system will create a staging tables. For this one staging table. For this entity, one staging table. For this entity, one staging table. And it will take the attributes as a table fields. So in MDG, we don't create the tables. In fact, MDG provides a configuration where you can create a data model. Under data model, you can add entities. Under each entity, you can add attributes, and the whole data model, you can activate it. Then your staging tables will get created in the system. Okay, so now let's look at it in the system first. Okay, then we can start creating a data model. So now, if you look at the transaction code to get into MDG configurations is MDG IMG. MDG IMG is a transaction code where we can get into MDG configurations. So under this is your MDG configuration. Under this one, there is something called general settings. Expand the general settings. All these are the topics for us. Okay, data model, UI model, process modeling, data replication, everything. Now we are at this data model level. So now when you expand this data model, there is something called edit data model. Click on this edit data model. Okay, now you can see this is the data model, out-of-box data model for material master, SAP created. Okay, this is for business partner, customer master, vendor master, 3 objects. This is for all your finance objects. So these are the 3 out-of-box standard data models SAP provided. Okay, now let's take example of one, MM. Is the name of the data model is MM. And we cannot change this name. It's a fixed, just like how your Mara table is there. Here you have your MM data model. So as I said, At the top level, you will have a data model. Under data model, when you further go down, you can see these are the different entities. Okay. And in this, for Mara table, there is one entity corresponding to Mara table. You will have one entity. This is the entity. Material. Material is the entity name. So under data model, you have this material entity. Of course, all other entities are also there, like your MDMA is there, MBEW is there. So likewise, we will go through each and everything. Now, at very high level, try to understand a data model is there. Under data model, you have data model is nothing but collection of entities. Under these entities, I just took one example, material entity, which is corresponding to your Mara table. So here, corresponding to Mara table, here you have material entity. Material entity. Okay. Now, under material entity, as we discussed, under entity, you will have the attributes. So now you can go further down. You can see all these are your attributes under material entity. Like you can find your industry sector MBRS, SH, which is all these are your Mara attributes only. Corresponding to Mara table attributes, you see here your material group is there. Okay. And base unit of measure, material type. So all these are the attributes under material entity. So this is the hierarchy. Model, under model, data model, under data model, you can create entities. Under entities, you will have attributes. And when you have more than one entity under one data model, you can define the relationships over here. And finally, once you complete your configuration with respect to your data model, all you need to do is you need to just click on activate. So when you click on this activate button, that is the time system in the backend, it creates all the required staging tables for you. Okay. Now I will also show you how the staging table look like. Okay. So to see your staging table, there are two ways. Okay.
Maybe the basic question.
Sure.
I don't know what is the difference between the entity and the staging table.
Okay. So staging table, see, entity is nothing but on the front end, you are doing some configuration, like you are creating your data model, you are configuring the entities, and under each entity, you are configuring the attributes and you are defining the relationship. This is your front end thing. And once you
can we say entity is like a design?
Yes. Yeah, entity, we can say entity is a kind of design. And once you complete your configuration or design, finally you do something called activation. When you do the activation, ultimately, see, this is not my table, right? My tables should look like something in SE11 object. To store my data in a table, I need an SE11 object, which is a table. This doesn't store your, this is not a table. It's a configuration or design kind of thing. Once you complete your configuration or design, when you click on activate, that is the time system will create your actual tables in the backend database. Let me show you just a minute.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Got it.
So there is a report actually. The report, you can go to SC38, and this is the report, USMD data model. Okay. When you execute this report, it asks to input one data model. Let's say, for example, I input my data model and execute. Now, this is your entity. Corresponding to this entity, this is the generated staging tables. So I showed you material entity, right? So this is my material entity. You can see this is my material entity. Corresponding to this material entity, as soon as the data model is activated, this is the staging table. You can see when I double click this one, it will take me to SE11 table, that a table with all the fields. But I haven't created this table by going into SE11. System automatically created, your MDG framework created this table. How it created, how MDG should know what attributes it has to include, because the base for this one is the data model, data model. In the data model, system looked at your entities and the attributes and the relationships. Accordingly, it created this staging table automatically. Okay, fine. Now, this is your actual staging table where your data, that's what I'm showing you every time, right? So this is my MDG system, and this is the MDG layer. This is the staging table. This is your application specific tables, right? So as soon as user logged in and submit a request, the data gets stored into this table. So this particular table, whatever I'm showing you, this particular table is this one, your S11 table. Now, this in MDG, we never ever create manually these tables. It has to generate by MDG framework only. So to create these tables as per your requirement, you need to work on your data model design part. That is nothing but here. If at all I wanted to add a new attribute in this staging table, then I need to go to my data model, identify, locate your that table is corresponding to this material entity. I'll go to the attributes, and in the end I will add a attribute over here. Okay, I'll click on edit, and okay, towards end, here I can click on new entries. Now I can add in new attributes and data element. So once I add this attribute and data element, and finally I will save my changes, and then I will go to this particular data model, select your data model, click on activate. This time, again, system will look at your data model entities and everything. It will regenerate your tables again. So as part of the regeneration process, if there are new attributes are there, it identified those attributes are not part of your staging table, then it will again add those new attributes also into your staging table.
I'm clear on this, the user, the tables that has been created. But my one level above, the entities are they one-to-one mapped to the ERP
Right?
set of tables? Like Mara is connected to entity 1, and other one is connected to entity 2. Is it something that's already built in, or do we have to?
No, it's already built in. It's already, because when I say this particular data model carries all
These
the
are all standard models.
Yeah, this is the standard data model. It contains all the entities which will be corresponding to your Mara, Marcy, MVKE, MBW, MARD. For all the application corresponding to your application specific tables, you will find the entity types under data model here.
Okay.
Okay.
The data model is a copy of whatever there in the other side, the ERP side.
Exactly. So that's why we are calling it as a standard object. Now, to answer your another question, you are asking about one-to-one mapping or not. Let's say, for example, I have my Mara table, right? In Mara table, I have 350 attributes. It shows 350 attributes. Okay. On data model side, corresponding to a Mara table, I have the entity name called material. Okay. So this is corresponding to this one. Now, all the 350 attributes is not part of your single entity. It's not like this. What happened? SAP created multiple entities. Okay, let's say this is Mara sales. And this is Mara, entity name is purchase. Okay, so out of these 350 attributes, maybe 100 attributes are basic data related. That means SAP added here 100 attributes. That means remaining out of 250, there are some attributes. 50 attributes are related to sales. I mean, though those are the basic data only, but the sales related. So again, you will find some more 100 attributes related to purchasing related, right? So they further categorized and created multiple entities. But ultimately, your 350 attributes will spread across these 3 entities. So it's not 1:1 relation, it's a 1:n relationship only. Okay, but when you fill all the data, right, these 100 attributes and these 50 attributes, these 100 attributes again, and submit your request, all these particular attributes from these 3 different entities will go and sit in one single table only.
Okay.
Per se, if my environment is not the SAP environment, I have a different ERP. So during that time, I have to establish that connection, is it?
Your environment is non-SAP, then you will be using MDG only for your master data creation, right?
Yes,
now,
yes.
You wanted to replicate, once this data is created, you wanted to replicate it to the target system, which is a non-SAP system.
Correct.
Okay, so that anyway you have to map, right? So that's what I said, in data replication we can discuss these scenarios. So let me just highlight at very high level. This is your MDG. You have your Mara table with 350 attributes here. Just taking example, you have one non-SAP system. Here you might be having maybe some 200 attributes only. Maybe the attribute names are also not same, right? So when you are replicating the data from here to here, you need to do either you will use a middleware, and from the middleware you need to map the field. Okay, here material number is equal to here maybe product. Here material type is equal to maybe product type or something else. So that kind of mapping we need to do, that one.
Okay.
So,
I mean, the tools like Informatica.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Yeah. So in the data replication framework, we can discuss, because in the SAP provides one definition with all the attributes and the one, right? So that the target system or source system has to map their fields into your SAP understandable fields.
Okay.
We will discuss in detail in the data replication framework.
Sure. Thank
you. Okay. So this is at very high level data model. I wanted you to visualize what is a data model, what it contains. Okay, but what we will be doing is, so this at the high level, data model is nothing but collection of entities, one or many. You can have one entity in a data model or multiple entities. When you have multiple entities, more than one entity, then you need to define a relationships between those entities. Okay, now when you have an entity, you will be defining certain attributes under that entities. Now, when you're adding an attribute, you also need to specify what is the data type. So this whole thing is what we are going to discuss and what we are going to create in the system, a brand new data model in the system. During that time, we will be discussing under the entities. There are 4 type of entity types are there. Entity type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. What are those 4 types? When we will use what types? And what are there are 3 relationships are there. What is the significance of those 3 relationships? And some settings are there. So this entire, our data model topic, that we will be discussing this entire portion. This will complete the whole data model concepts.